Actually, let's perhaps start with point 2. So I'll move that up. So the results of the code review problem survey. So I reached out to Eric Johnson, Andre, and Michelle, and they shared it a bit more broadly, but we didn't have a lot of additional responses. I mean, it doubled or almost, yeah, it doubled compared to last week. But even so, we're just at around 16% of all of engineers at GitLab. And I'm not sure if we should keep going because yeah, we've already had this open for 2 weeks and we continuously shared it. And of course, it's optional for people to reply, but what do you think?
Yeah, I would say depending on whether you've seen, like, you feel like you've seen some patterns emerge, if you feel like there are some steps you could take and patterns have emerged, then closing it would be fine. But if you still feel like it's not conclusive yet, then I would continue to push for it. But maybe that'll depend on what you say in the later points.
Um, Let me see. So the thing is, so the most important question, of course, is the one where we ask them to rank the problems, and and these are the results. So I'm not entirely sure if this is good enough. I mean, there's a clear difference between the bottom one and the top one in terms of the mean. And also,
Right.
what I've noticed here is that there's a group here at the top with these three around 5.5, 6. And then this one is almost 7. And then we have like from 7 to 9, there's a huge number of choices here that are similarly ranked. And then this one is completely off the chart and is I would say that it's purely very poorly ranked.
Right. Yeah, I see. So with these groups, I don't know. That's a good point that you're raising here. The top three seem to be pretty clear, and then there's some closeness with the middle, as we were kind of talking about
Yeah.
before, where there are some that it's like important for some, maybe not so important for others, and then there's review and commit messages, which seems to be kind of for most people not as big of a priority. So actually, yeah, it seems pretty good. I would say if you want to stop here, that's totally fine, especially since this is a internal survey anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I feel like if you've already feeling like you're learning from these results, then totally fine to stop here.
Yeah. Okay,
And you
cool.
might be able to dive deeper into something in another survey rather than continuing to push this survey. So that's also an option if you
Yeah.
wanted to follow up later on.
Yeah. There are other comments here, but I don't see a specific pattern when I review them. It's just a lot of different things. Some of them are things that we're already working on, but are not necessarily like specific problems compared to what we have listed. Um, and and yeah, and then when we added this question about what's the large MR for you, basically what people have replied is that it's a number of files or lines that is really big, and it makes it harder. although there are some comments that mention just being slow, the MR experience, and having to do with performance, essentially. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
this is really interesting to see this coming from internal response is super interesting. Um, have you do you plan to discuss this with engineering leaders or anything like that, just to get their perspective on it?
Um,
Like,
no, I
interesting.
mean, so yeah, I haven't discussed this with anyone else, and of course, the idea is to then share the results more broadly, at least so that the people that have replied know what was the outcome of the survey. Um,
Yeah.
and we've had 9 engineering managers reply, which is great, I think, given the amount of engineering managers, and some VPs and executives, um, and a few others, which I don't know if they replied. Oh, technical writers and support. Yeah. Um, but yeah, the main audience that we wanted to target was specifically engineers, but of course, it's also important to know about these. Yeah.
Yeah, this is really interesting. Okay. Yeah, I would say this is probably a fine stopping point. Just looking, I'm looking at some of the data a little bit right now, and it looks like that pattern would probably hold, the
Mm-hmm.
pattern in the ranking from what I'm seeing. Very interesting. Okay,
Cool.
I guess you have some
Um,
other points here as well.
yeah, I think for in terms of so yeah, the points I added there was just also the top 3 problems and the bottom 3 that I identified. But I think I'll share this in the issue, and see what Kai replies as well. And I'll keep it open just until he replies, because I imagine that um, like he's not able to join, of course, because of power outages. So let's see what he says.
Sounds good.
All right. Um, cool. So the next point is about the merge widget design framework. And this was something I started working on after I did a competitive analysis, looking at how our competitors do, what is their user experience in terms of the merge checks. And I listed out some screenshots and details about how do they do it for Azure, Bitbucket, Garrett, GitHub, Fabricator, and Reviewable. And then I also added this table here at the top with some classification of like good things, not so good things for each one of them, um, according to these heuristics, usability heuristics. And after that, I started working on this. So there are a lot of things here, but I don't think we'll have time to talk about all of them. So let me focus on what I think are the must-haves. And it's basically the 2 areas that I really want your feedback. And I think having this more reactionary feedback where you see something and you react to it in real time is better, because this is what users will see in the end. Um, so
So I should just give my initial reaction, just like
yeah,
okay.
also, yeah, exactly. So I'll just start off with the structure. So today, what I'm thinking for the merge widget is this kind of structure where if there's a problem when merging or doing any kind of action regarding these merge widgets. We place the alerts at the top of the widget, and they can be dismissible if we want or not. And then the pattern here is similar to what we have today with a status icon, like saying, is there something you need to look at, or is everything okay? Then we can have a title and other styles of text here. We have the actions that will be inline of things that you need to do in this scenario. And then we can also add more detail here below with text and an additional action related to the detail. And there are two important things that I wanted to cover today. So one of them is placing in this gray background section all of the options that relates to the act of merging. So everything that you can change and that will affect the merge, and even things that will be affected or that will happen when you click the merge button. So it's basically where you see options and consequences before merging. And today we don't have that properly defined. So if you look, for example, here, this is a screenshot from our product today. The first thing that we have is the merge button. Regardless of the label, we have this action. And after that, we have the options. And then even below, further below, we have the ability to modify the commit messages, which again is related to this button. And then it has some of the consequences of things that will happen when you click this button further down. And what I'm proposing is reversing this hierarchy so that the last thing you see is the button, and before that you have all of the configurations and all of the consequences. And that would be something like this, where we say what is the state of what we can call the mergeability, if this something that can be merged or not. And then you have all of the options: first, deleting source branch, squashing commits, edit commit messages. It says exactly what is going to happen when you click the merge button, and also that these issues will be closed. And then you have the button. And for this case, because it's not the regular merge, it would be, this is another suggestion that, of course, we can talk about that separately, but this would be the merge when pipeline succeeds, or add to merge train. And there's a brief explanation here. With the regular merge, it would look something like this. So this might be easier to understand. So that's I'll stop there, because I think this is the first point. What I'd like your feedback on is, how do you feel about changing from this, where you have the button, the options, and then the consequences, and flipping that so it's the other way around?
Ooh, this is super interesting because my initial reaction, what at least for me personally, was to like it flipped, because for me it made it so that I was, reviewing all the information I needed to know. It's like almost like a checklist. Like, okay, I know what's going to happen next, and then I can check off what needs to happen, and then the final action is to merge. So that made sense to me in my head. It was like making sure that I've considered everything and then finally move on to merge. The one concern was whether the button would be perceived as less obvious, or because there's other things ahead of it, and it's like a little more, I guess the blue is more, for me, it's more subtle than the green. So I was just kind of wondering whether the button might be a little hidden. But I don't think that would be a huge problem, but that was my initial reaction.
It's good call out on the color. So this is actually so it can be green. If we implemented it today, it can be green, but this will be the future of all of the buttons in GitLab.
I just remembered that.
Yeah, because so this is already, so when I'm designing this in Figma, I don't have the ability to I mean, I can do it manually, but I don't have the selection of the green buttons anymore. We only have what we call confirm and danger buttons. So we have this blue one, the danger, and then we have the default. So these will be the only three button styles that we have, or three main button styles that we have um, in GitLab. But I mean, it can of course change, and we can use green if we want it in the first iteration.
Yeah, I just remember that that's related to Jeremy's research. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
okay. That's
for,
okay. I'm sure, like, if someone is seeing the recording, they will also have the same question. So that's okay.
yeah, but yeah. So for me, this this makes sense to me the way that I would be going through each of these like different notes to me, because otherwise maybe I see the merge button on top and I don't necessarily pay as much attention to anything else, and it may or
Mm-hmm.
may not be important information. So
Mm-hmm.
my initial reaction is I like the flipped approach.
Awesome. Cool. Um, okay. And so the other thing is how we display the reasons why it's not possible to merge. So this is an example that we have today in the product um, when it is required that all threads are resolved before you can merge. So today we disable the merge button. We have this text saying before this can be merged, one or more threads must be resolved. We then have the actions to jump to the first unresolved thread or resolve all threads in a new issue. So this is the reason, and these are the things that you can do to address this so that you can merge, right? And today we only display one reason at a time. So even if your merge request has multiple reasons that it can't be merged, we only display one, the first one that comes through our logic in the code base. So if this merge request is, for example, I don't know, in a draft state, or is missing approvals, for example, we would only display like one or more threads must be resolved. But once you resolve this, the next reason will appear, and so on until all of the reasons have been addressed and all of the blocking reasons, so you can merge. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that
Okay.
makes sense.
So again, today we only display one at a time, and we have a couple of options. So let me go further down. I think it will be something like this. Okay, let me show you this one. Although don't pay close attention to these buttons here, to their style. But essentially, what I'm proposing here is that there are a couple of possibilities. We can stick to what we have today and only display one reason at a time, which would be something like this, saying merging is blocked, threads must be resolved, for example. Another option is still display one reason at a time, but indicates if other merge checks have failed, or if every other merge check has succeeded, and also giving the user the ability to see all of the merge checks, failed and successful, so that they can understand what they need to do. And the other option, although it's not clear here, would be to show all of the reasons why something is blocked, right? So we would display all of this, and one by one, we would say, like this is blocking, this is blocking, this is blocking, blah, 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 with all of the reasons. But I do have some concerns here that this might become a bit too tall, right? So, and we already have a lot of things happening in the merge request widget, and it can already be very tall. Um, But so there's this, my feedback, what I wanted to hear from you is basically, do you feel that having just one reason displayed is good enough? Is it helpful to have this text here saying that there are other merge checks failing or succeeding, and also the ability to view them, or not?
Yeah, this is another good question because as you were going through it, my my mind was thinking if that whatever merging is blocked by, that I would personally expect to see all of them. Not necessarily all at once, it's just because if it only has one reason and you didn't include any other information, if I resolve that reason but then it was still blocked, I'd be like, why? Why is it blocked?
Mm,
Why? That would kind of confuse me, at least for a second. Like, I thought I resolved the one reason that it was blocked.
right.
But I also understand the concern about it becoming too tall if there were, say, I don't know, 5 reasons that it was blocked. But
Hmm.
I think I'm leaning towards the one that has merging is blocked and then it shows the reasons why it's blocked and then you resolve them one at a time.
This one.
But
Yeah.
yes. Or at least the way that it has merging is blocked. You know, that's the salient information and then maybe you're showing that okay, 3 things failed and you show the first one and then you can I don't know, maybe expand the rest or something
Hmm.
like that, but that at least to me is where what I would think makes sense.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think from the point of view of being as clear as possible, this is certainly clearer than this, because you can, as you said, you have the title clearly saying merging is blocked, and then you have the reasons below, and you can have multiple reasons and even the actions to address them. Yeah, my main concern is that we can have, from my research, we can have like 8 reasons um, at the same time. So that's the worst case scenario, but it's possible to have 8 reasons at the same time. Um, of course, most will have less than that, but even if you have 4 and you have all of the other widgets on top, it's going to be very tall. Um,
All right.
and that's my main concern, at least from the perspective of the first iteration, and taking into account everything else that we still have with the other widgets and we're not doing anything about them. It might add a lot of height and a lot of information that perhaps it's not it's not
Yeah.
something that users will do right away. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, see that's a good point too. This is a this is a tricky one cuz in my head there's like the first scenario where there's one shown. Okay, I resolve the threads issue and then another one pops up. I resolve that. Like would that happen 8 times in the scenario where I have 8 problems? Like I resolved it. Okay, fine,
Yeah.
it's gone. Then another one comes up. Fine, let me resolve this. And then another one comes up, and then it just happens 8 times. And I'm like, why didn't you just tell me this in the first place? But at the same time, showing them all these problems all at once could also be overwhelming, but it also could be like, I'm not going to do this right now. And then someone else comes to the MR and they see it and they're like, what is all of this? And
Yeah.
none of it makes sense.
I mean,
Yeah,
from
I guess in an ideal world, I would have the one on the left and maybe showing somehow expanding or revealing one of them at a time where I can focus on I can see one,
Mhm.
expand the rest or something like that would be my ideal
Mhm.
situation.
Yeah.
But this might vary though depending on the different people you talk to.
Yeah. From my experience, I think the biggest number of checks of things that I needed to address before being able to merge were like approval, no, sorry. So rebase, approve, resolve all threads, and then I could merge. So like 3 or maybe 4 was the maximum number of things that I had to do in a sequence, because this is what happens today. What you were describing of I fix this and then I go back. Oh, there's another thing I fix. That's what happens today because we only show one reason at a time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's tricky. But yeah, my current feeling is towards the one on the left, the merging is blocked, and then showing all the reasons.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for that. Let me see. So that's what I had in terms of must-haves. I have a few nice to haves here, but I don't think it's worth going through them. I mean, we can talk about this one, the text, about many copy improvements, making the text more human and celebrate successes. So,
Sure, I have time for that if you want to go through it.
yeah, this one is quick. So today, when there's no other blockers to merge, we just have this button. And yeah, here I'm suggesting we have saying like ready to ship, you can now merge, or maybe we can have, I don't know, something else, but just a bit more positive, because usually merge requests are something that take a long time, and getting to the point where you can merge something should feel good. Um, and then the same
Yeah.
thing or a similar thing for merging. So when it's in the process of being merged, this is what we have today. It's like a spinner or saying this merge request is in the process of being merged. And yeah, I simplified all of this interface to just this with this copy. Merging, drum roll, please. you know, um, and it could be interesting. We could have random things appearing here when people are waiting for merging. Drum roll, please, or wait for it, uh, or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's interesting. I can't remember the last time I thought about this in terms of. I know we had a discussion related to this a long time ago when we were first kind of coming up with principles for
Right.
pajamas and things like that. But yeah, is this common throughout GitLab to do these sort of things, or are we right now more on the robotic side of things and
I
less
think
human?
we're clearly on the more robotic side of things. Also because we don't have a lot of these moments of people like waiting for something or successful moments. It's difficult for us to infuse that energy because usually like it needs to be productive. And for example, when you were, let me give you this example, like there was an error in merging, right? So here I'm suggesting we say enable to merge, and then we have the specific error message and then try again. If we wanted, we could write this as what we have today, which for error messages, we're, I think, too human. We say, oh, something went wrong, please try again, or something like that. And it can be much more concise just by saying enable to merge, try again, because that's what people want.
Right.
Um, and so I think it's a balance, but I think, leaning or always talking with the same um, tone, and I think we
Yeah.
can change that tone more when these moments happen, when something should be celebrated and it's ready to go, or they've merged something, or it's in the process of being merged. So yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I remember, what is it? When I was testing out a new project or something, and I set up my pipeline or something like that, there was a little tip or tutorial, and then it had like this little party hat and celebration. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I like that. I just set up my pipeline and it like congratulated me or something like that. So that was kind of
Yeah,
cool.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of when you vest some stock options in Carta. You
Right.
know, I don't know if it's that or when you sign up or when you sign the papers for new stock options, it just shoots a lot of confetti throughout
Yeah.
the screen. I love that.
Yeah, and something interesting today when I was, because I'm doing like a walkthrough sort of thing with
Hmm.
Atlassian. And so when I was logging in, as it was loading, it was just giving me random tips. I know we can't do that in the widget, but that was just also interesting to me. So it was just loading, and then it was like tip number one, something, something, something. And then it went on to tip number two,
Yeah.
and I'm like, how many tips are going to fit in here while it's loading? It got up to three.
Yeah.
Like,
But
that's both good
did
and
that help?
bad.
Did that help with the waiting or not so much?
It helped with the waiting, but then I became curious, like, how many tips are coming? How long will I wait? Yeah, but I like that idea with the showing a celebration and making it more human, especially on this widget because, as you said, it's really tall and there's a lot going on. I think, at least from what I was seeing with yours, it was helping me kind of see, okay, what's the main thing to take away from here? What is the main message? Because there are a lot of different options popping up all at once, so it is nice to have that main thing to take away and do next.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, we're way over time, so I apologize for that. But I think
No,
in terms of the feedback, that's the main things that I wanted. There are a few other things there, and feel free to explore the Figma file on your own. But that's at least what I want. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to comment on.
um, I think that was it so far. I like the direction. Oh, at least the things you're considering. To me, it's making it more clear because I know that at least for me, when I go in and look at the all the different widgets, sometimes I don't even know where to start or what it all means. So I like what I'm seeing here. It's
Cool.
exciting.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Catherine. And I hope everything continues to go well with you this week.
Thank you. You too. I hope so.
I'll see you around then. Thanks for the feedback.
Okay. You're welcome. Bye bye.
Bye bye.